Moving people by trains is one of the most efficient ways of travel, especially near larger cities. One way to move people from the suburbs to larger metro areas is the use of commuter rail lines, and for the United States' third largest city, this is no different. Chicago is the central hub for all rail traffic and uses Metra to move over 31 million people annually. Metra has become an icon of Chicago, and the stainless steel sides of the gallery cars are an instant reminder of the rail line. HO scale modelers have been without a mass-produced Nippon Sharo cars for decades and often had to resort to wood kits or older resin models. Atlas announced their production of these gallery cars in June 2022 to the glee of Chicago modelers, and dealers finally took delivery in October 2024. This run does include the 6000 trailer series and the 8500 cab car series as well. With Metra being the sole road name, the run does include 25 individual cars. The MSRP is $139.95 for cab cars, $119.95 for coaches, and $379.95 for the 3-pack. Today we'll be taking a look at Metra 8584. This is a cab car from the 3-pack. We'll also take a look at the 6000 series trailer car and compare the differences. Starting off on the A end of the car, or the head end of the cab car, the feature that stands out the most is the horn mounted to the top of the roof. Across the face of the end of the car are several lighting features as well. The one at the top is the main headlight with the two bulbs in the horizontal orientation. On either side of the headlight are the main cab windows with the etched metal windshield wipers that are separately applied. Underneath the main windows are more of the LED lighting features. These ones on top are the red LED marker lights, and under those are the white versions that would be used for the ditch lights. The door and diaphragm features are very nicely done, utilizing several molded on details. The cab end of the car is also the brake end of the car. This is signified by the brake handle lever that's molded into the interior of the diaphragm and has the brake chain running down to the outside of the diaphragm to the underside of the car. Just below the sill of the car are the various hose connections. These would be used for MUing different cars and carrying the electrical components from the locomotive to the rest of the train. Another special feature of the cab end of the car is going to be the snowplow that's located underneath the MU connections. This is a smaller, separately applied plastic detail that really gives good depth to the model. Moving down to the side of the car, one of the things to first notice is the cab units is the lack of the green windows in the top left corner of the car. This is clearly used for better visibility for the crew members to see out of the sides of the car. The side windows do have a separately applied metal detail. This is going to be your side mirror on the front of the windows that also acts as kind of a wind deflector as well. Just below the first green window is going to be a pair of grab irons. The upper one of these is going to be the drop style that's mounted upside down, and the lower one is going to be your more standard straight grab iron. These are separately applied metal pieces as well. Underneath the grab irons are going to be the separately applied plastic stirrup steps. These are molded in a metallic silver paint to match the rest of the car body. The rest of the windows look pretty dark and actually appear to be blacked out, but they do in fact have a green tint to them. This is seen a little bit better when they are rolling down the track and have the interior lighting on. Some of the windows have a silver outline instead of the black outline. The silver outline indicates emergency exits on the prototype, and as you can see, there's several different options available depending on each level and sides of the car. Lastly, one other thing to take a look at is the blue Metra logo that's stamped on the side of the car body, as well as the road number next to the side doors. The side doors also have a lot of great details on either sides of the door. These include the separately applied metal grab irons that are a little bit longer than your standard grab iron, and the doors themselves do have molded windows with the inserts and the black outline. On the bottom of the doors are finished off with a yellow highlighting on the prototype. This is a highlight painting to warn passengers about the step and minding the gap between the platform and the real car. On the underside of the car, there's a lot of great details, most of which are a little bit crude and hard to see exactly depending on where you're at. But the two larger tanks just to the right of the doors, these are going to be your air receivers, with one tucked up underneath the sill and another one next to it a little bit closer to the car body. Then moving on to the trucks are fitted with lots of great molded on detail, and then you do have the separately applied plastic details like the brake piston on the side. The other side of the cab car is actually the exact same as the regular trailer cars, so this will give some good insight before we take a little bit more extensive look at the trailers. The diaphragms on the car are actually spring-loaded, and you can see the spring when looking down on the model. The top of the diaphragm does have the spring action, and the bottom is rigid in place. Looking inside the diaphragm, you can see some of the vestibule area with the door and its molded on details. The door does have another window insert with the black outline. Some more of the more molded on details include the electrical boxes and wiring between the two, as well as a gate to prevent people from traversing out the end of the train. Just below the diaphragm is going to be your standard size metal coupler. This coupler appears to be a genuine KD number 5 and has the magnetic trip pins. To the left of the coupler is going to be your plastic coupler cut bar. This is separately applied detail attaching to the support bracket for the MU connections. Lastly, they are going to be separately applied metal grab irons just above the end sills on either side of the diaphragm. Looking on the engineer's side of the car, we can check out there's a little bit of different details compared to the conductor's side. With this view, we do have the B end of the car facing the right side of the screen, and we can see a little bit different terms of underbody details. Once again, not exactly an expert on what a lot of these are, but some of them appear to be air tanks as well as other battery boxes and electrical connections and the use of potable water for the restrooms. Another detail to take a note of is for the cab car specifically is going to be your speed recorder. That speed recorder is going to have an electrical box underneath the sill on the right side and does have a separately applied plastic detail running to the axle of the truck. Looking at the roof gives a lot of great details, and one of the things that Atlas really nailed on this car is the fluting that runs down the entire length of the roof as well as the sides. This is especially noticeable on the roof. The fluting looks really good and actually looks pretty to scale. Towards the center of the car are going to be the intake screens. These would be used for the air conditioning units, and while these grills are molded on, they still look relatively good. The roof also does feature several bathroom vents and exhaust ports. These will be 4 of them with 2 on either side, just on the other sides of the doors. Toward the cab portion of the roof, there are a couple more details to check out. The first of these is going to be your Sinclair antenna. This is a separately applied plastic detail attached to the non-fluting portion of the roof. The other major detail on the roof is going to be the air horn that we saw earlier, but this does give a little bit better chance to check out the 3-chime horn, as well as 2 separately applied metal grab irons on top of the horn to prevent them from damage. Taking a look underneath the car, once again, there's quite a bit of underbody detail to a rather plain background, but nonetheless, there's still quite a bit of detail. Taking a look, we can see the various tanks, as well as the air receivers, clean water tanks, electrical boxes, and battery boxes. One of the more interesting aspects of these cars is actually the coupler mechanism. While these couplers do have quite a bit of sway, especially for these larger wheelbases, Atlas came up with a clever mechanism to ensure the coupler stays relatively close to the car body and is still able to navigate down to a 22-inch curve. It works pretty well and utilizes a spring action to keep the coupler towards the center of the car. The car does ride on metal wheels and utilizes electrical pickups to provide the car with the LED lighting that we will take a look at in a little bit. The electrical pickups are connected to wires that then run into the car body through holes underneath the truck bolsters. With the exception of a few cab details, the trailer and cab cars are pretty similar with only a few minor differences between the two. The first of these is going to be the addition of the extra battery box on the conductor's side of the cab unit, as well as the obvious difference of not utilizing a clear window and instead having the 8 full green tint windows on the left-hand side. Some vents on the roof are also going to be a slightly different arrangement between the two types of gallery cars. On the engineer's side of the car body, another slight difference is going to be a smaller battery box as well as lacking the speed recorder. As mentioned earlier, there is going to be a slight difference in the emergency window array that can be seen on either side of the car. While looking on the B end of the trailer car, it's actually pretty similar to the normal A end of the other cars, just with the addition of the handbrake lever on the inner diaphragm and having the molded on chain that runs down to the underside of the car body. The shells of the cars can be removed by gently pulling apart the sides of the car body towards the center doors and then gently lifting off on either side of the underbody. There's not any screws holding the car body to the underside as well, nor do the coupler boxes connect to the car body. Once the body is removed, we can check out the interior details, starting with the seat details. Atlas did a really good job of creating an interior that matches the different seating configurations, as well as the difference between the double and single seats compared to the lower and upper levels. The interior baggage storage areas can also be seen very clearly. This car does feature 2 lighting boards, one for each the lower and upper decks, with white LED lights throughout the entire car body to give a good illuminated look when rolling down the rails. For DC operation, the car is automatically light with every available light being lit. The lighting board does come with a solid DCC plug. This 21-pin plug can be removed and replaced with an optional DCC decoder that can be installed on the upper lighting board. The lighting features for the cab version are a little bit interesting to say the least. All of the lights can be controlled individually to some degree after installing a DCC decoder. When on DC mode, all of the available lights will turn on when track power is applied. But with a DCC decoder installed, F0 will turn on the main headlight located at the top of the car when it's in the forward direction, and when the car is in reverse, the main headlight will kick out and the two red marker lights will instead illuminate. The conductor's side ditch light will turn on with F5, and the engineer's side ditch light, as well as the simulated gyro light, will turn on with F8. The interior lights, including the two outer and inner vestibules, will turn on with F6 for the main interior lighting. The model car body length is 11.5 inches long, so the NMRA recommended weight is 6.75 ounces. The cab car weighs a little bit more than the coach, coming in at 7.93 ounces, and the trailer comes in at 7.76 ounces. Both versions are a little bit over an ounce greater than the NMRA recommended weight. The standard size metal couplers were all found at the correct height as well for solid operations. For the scoring section of the review, the score will be broken down into several categories, each with its own point total, adding up to 100 possible points. The packaging on the model is pretty standard Atlas Masteron packaging. All the models arrived safe and sound. The one thing I actually didn't love was the box included a warranty card as well as a exploded parts diagram, but no other instructions on taking the car apart or DCC lighting or features. Probably would have been a better option. The accuracy of the models is pretty well done. Checking out all the prototype photos, I couldn't find any major discrepancies. There's not really any road-specific or number-specific details to really make a note of. Atlas did a good job of making sure smaller details like the underbody details and window details for the silver trim pieces were nicely done. The paint on the model looks really good as well. The silver was used to simulate the stainless steel look. I think they did a really good job of doing it without some sort of metal coating. I really like it, and I think overall they did a really good job. All the printing and logos were also nicely done, as well as the highlight painting in the various areas. I also like that the striping on the cab car didn't have any paint blurriness or bleeding, which is usually an issue. The details on the model are kind of a mixed bag. The car does have a higher MSRP at $140 for the cab car and then $120 for the trailers. Overall, the details are all right with a good mixture of separately applied and metal details. There was a couple small issues that I thought could have been done better on the underbody, for example. While it's not a huge issue, these cars do have a little bit higher ride height as well as a little bit larger underbody spacing. So just a little bit more could have been done for the underbody details, as well as the coupler cut bar and stirrup steps. Both were separately applied plastic details, but looked a little clunky for a $100 model. The operations of the car was pretty solid out of the bag. No major adjustments were needed. The cars were adequately weighted, as well as having metal couplers at the correct height. As I just mentioned, the coupler struts and wheels were all at the correct height, with the metal standard couplers and metal wheels having a good rolling capacity despite the electrical pickups. The trucks were adequately detailed without rotating roller bearing caps, having some minor molded on details, as well as separately applied brake pistons. The value of these cars is pretty fair, I would say, coming in at a higher MSRP at $140 or $120, but these are brand new models, and thus we should expect a higher initial capital. Atlas also did a real solid by including the interior lighting on all these cars, and that's quite a bit of savings, especially for the people that have to install it or pay someone else to install it. They didn't feel like they're missing out, but in the grand scheme of things, overall, a pretty solid value. And finally, the miscellaneous section. One thing I wanted to talk about was the lighting features for these cars is leaving me a little bit puzzled, where most of the settings are individually adjustable except for the gyro light that's connected to the engineer's ditch light. Another interesting aspect I saw was the interior lights go off when the car is in reverse. So I'm not 100% sure if that's an individual issue with my decoder messing up, but I thought overall the lighting could have just been done a little bit better. While disassembling the model, I also did find a capacitor that would appear to give them flicker-free lighting, but every time I lost power, the cars immediately lost their lighting capabilities as well. So I don't know exactly what's going on with that. Adding up all the points gives an 87 out of 100, or a solid B+ rating. And when comparing the Metra gallery cars to other recently reviewed models, the gallery cars end up a little bit lower on the list on the second half. Now, overall, this does feel like a decent fit when these cars are basically a game changer for Chicago modelers, but they did come with a little bit of faults, and this just feels like a classic Atlas release where they make a really nice model at a very premium price, but the shortcomings are a little bit questionable. Atlas really could have went above and beyond with some better minor details, going extra mile with the underbody and the lighting features. I'm really surprised about the lighting feature decision, and I really hope it's just an individual decoder issue on my end. I'm also a little surprised Atlas didn't take this opportunity to sell additional DCC decoders as well as sound cars. But regardless, these cars look great, but that's just kind of another whole nother level that could have been issued. But that's really all I got for you guys this time. Let me know what you guys think for these cars, if they were going to live up to the hype, or if people should wait for the Rapido models as well. I'm really grateful for this release, and I really can't wait for the additional car numbers, as well as providing additional road numbers like VHR or Caltrain. But that's all I got for you guys. Comment, rate, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.